Welcome to the Hey Boomer podcast, the show that inspires listeners to know you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Each week, we have extraordinary guests, thought leaders, and active, engaged people who share their insights with us. This week's show is about dating in the time of COVID, dating in our second or third act of life, and understanding how we bring ourselves and present ourselves to potential partners and what role we have in playing attracting people that may not be the right people for us. It's a fascinating conversation. I think you will learn a lot. I hope you enjoy it. My name is Wendy Green, and I am the host of Hey Boomer. Hello, Hey Boomer listeners. What do you think of that cute little video at the beginning? Hope you liked it. So today's topic is dating. And dating has certainly changed since we were in high school, when you just kind of hung out with your friends. You probably did group dates, whatever. And then maybe eventually that special someone would ask you out, or you might even have asked them out. It was awkward in high school, but probably easier than it is now as adults. And it is especially challenging now during the time of COVID. So when you enter the dating world as an adult, there are many ways, and you probably don't want to go hang out at bars and try and pick people up that way. That is never the recommended way. But there are clubs and classes and churches and places like that where you might go and meet people. And many of us, myself included, have tried some of the online dating sites. And those dating sites have proven for me to be very challenging. First of all, you have to create your own profile, right? Which means you have to put up pictures of yourself. You have to write about yourself, and trying to write about how wonderful you are is never easy. And then you get brave and you put it out there to the world, and nobody sends you a notice that they want to talk to you. And so you start to think, oh, I didn't do something right, or people aren't interested in me, or whatever. And you get a little ego hit there. So you think, okay, all right, I'm going for this. And you try and reach out to a few people that look like they might be interesting to you. And then guess what? They don't respond. And now it's like another ego hit. You're like, oh. So we are very fortunate today to have Christine Baumgartner with us. And Christine is a dating coach and a relationship specialist and the owner of The Perfect Catch. And she's going to talk to us about dating as adults and in the time of COVID, and even dating in your relationships. Well, your long-term relationships, dating is important. Before I bring her on, I just want to tell you, we, Hey Boomer, have a new partner. And our partner is Lifeline Screening. So Lifeline Screening does preventative health checks to assess your risk for things like cardiovascular disease and stroke risks. And so I signed up and went through their assessments, and I was very pleased with how professional it was, how carefully it was, handled with all of the social distancing. It's a mobile unit, so it's all over the country, and you will be able to find locations anywhere you live. And they are offering this 5-test series to test your cardiovascular and stroke risks for $149 to Hey Boomer listeners, which is really awesome. If you were to get those tests through your doctor, and they probably wouldn't order them until you showed some sign of a risk, it would take a while for you to be able to find anything at all that might be comparable in cost. You get a printed report in a couple of weeks, and nice details that you can take to your doctor. So I've got the link here on the screen, but also I have created a post on the Hey Boomer Facebook page. So go there, check out your risk, find out if there's anything going on before it becomes a problem. I just wanted to remind you that if you are not able to join us on Mondays, or if you have friends that you think would enjoy this conversation that we're going to have today, you can listen to us on most of the major podcast channels, or you can listen to the video recording again on the Hey Boomer Facebook page or our YouTube page. And we like your comments. So let me bring Christine on. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Wendy. So lovely to see you again.
And you as well. Thank you for joining us today from Southern California.
Thank you. It's such a wonderful treat to talk to you again.
Thanks. So let me tell people a little bit about you before we actually jump into all of this, okay? So Christine works with singles who are frustrated with their dating life and are ready to find that loving partner, and that are willing to tackle what's keeping love away.
Yeah.
As a successful coach with John Gray, you remember John Gray, the author of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? So she was trained with John Gray and then combined her personal dating experiences and created the Transform Your Dating Life system. She helps people who are confused and are concerned about re-entering the world of dating. And when Christine's not working with her clients, you'll find her horseback riding, volunteering at a local equine therapy ranch, or hanging out with her friends and cuddling with her two cats, Ethel and Junie. Aww. So, Christine, how and why does somebody become a dating coach?
Well, that's such a really good question that I imagine you would know that I get asked it a lot. And I love your title, Dating Again. I hear that so much that we weren't planning to date again.
No.
At all. So I became a coach. Often coaches will say that we were our first client, and I certainly was. I was married when I was 18, and I got divorced when I was 31. So I was single and 30 and no kids, and I'd never really dated because I'd met my first husband when I was 16. So I dated a lot. It was really fun, and it was a really great experience, better than I thought it would be. And my friends would all say, so what do you think of the guys that you're dating? I go, they're really nice. And really, in all my history of dating lots of men, I never dated anybody that wasn't a nice man. And in my same sentence of saying they're nice, I'd say, but I wouldn't marry them. But it wasn't a problem because I wasn't interested in getting married again at that time. So I never really looked at why I wouldn't marry them. And then many years later, I decided I wanted to get married again. And it was right when online dating started happening. And what was so amazing I had a girlfriend that was starting because I didn't hear about it. And she said, you want to come try? And I said, sure, I was game. And there was even more men to date then because men are fearless. They just jumped on online dating. They'd throw up a profile. They'd throw up some pictures. And women, we're cautious. We're careful. We want to check things out ahead of time. So online dating sites were just opening their doors to women for free because if women are not there, men are not going to show up, right?
Right.
That's how it is everywhere. So then I had even more men to date. And I had mentioned to my friends, I think I'm really in the mood to get married again. So they'd say, well, what do you think of the guys that you're dating? And I'd say, really nice guys. I wouldn't marry them. I thought, well, that's a problem since I've now said out loud, I want to get married. So I thought I should look at, well, what are the traits that I wouldn't marry? I mean, really get clear about it now. And amazingly, I live in this very metropolitan, I live near Disneyland. It is heavily populated. There are lots of men. But consistently, the men sitting across the table from me would have really good jobs and would make very good money, but they had no money set aside. They had no savings. They had no retirement. They often had a lot of credit card debt. And people would say, how do you even find that out? Because I would never ask that question. It turns out I'm really good at asking inquiring, I'm curious questions. So what I would ask men is, well, how do you plan for a vacation? Because I would always set aside a fund for my vacations every year. And they would explain to me, well, you know, those credit cards applications that just come in the mail and I just get a new one each time I go on vacation and I have all this debt. I know. And one guy actually explained to me how he had gone on this round the world trip. Turns out you can buy a ticket for around the world. And as long as you keep going in the same direction, you can get on and off as much as you want. I think it's over a year. And he did
Wow.
amazing things. His trip was so fun to hear about. And he came back in a lot of debt. And he had this really good job, but he didn't like it. And he was explaining to me how he was going to quit. And I said, oh, what are you going to do? He goes, I don't know. I know. And the thing is, they were perfectly content as they were, but it just wasn't going to work for me. I was much more cautious with my money. I
Cautious.
was more careful with preparing for my future. So I thought, well, why do I keep having all these the same trait keeps showing up across the table from me? So you go through this period where what all my clients do too are like, well, what kind of a person attracts men like that? And why am I attracted to them? And what does that say about me? And you go through this kind of negative part. And the best part about it is when you figure out, oh, it might have something to do with me. Turns out it had a lot to do with me. You can do something about it. So what I found out was that was my ex-husband and my dad. They'd been very lucrative entrepreneurs, but they never had any money to show for it. I mean, they did really well in their businesses, but they weren't very careful with their money. Preparing for the future was not important to either one of them. And I thought, oh, in my formative years, this is what I thought who men were, what I thought I could only deserve. I knew how to handle that. So as an adult now, in my late 40s, I decided, well, that isn't me anymore. I don't need to think that about men. I could think differently about men. I could think, because I had at that point, I had a company where I planned events for 25 years. And those people had to have a lot of discretionary income to plan a big party. And I thought, well, I attract clients like that. I bet I could attract a man like that. So I figured out a process to put myself through, which is the transform your dating life process that I do with clients. And the very next man that sat across the table from me made money and had money. I know. So I said, oh, it can't be that easy. You know how we are. So I said, well, what's the next trait that I wouldn't marry? And I worked on a process that had to do with me. And the very next man that showed up didn't have either of those traits.
Uh-huh.
I know. So then my friend said, well, what do you think of the guys you're dating? And I said, they have way more of the traits that I would marry, and they're not having the traits that I wouldn't marry. And they said, what'd you do? And I said, I just came up with this process. I use it for myself. I don't know if it would work for anybody else, but here, and it worked for them.
Huh.
So then I met and married my sadly now deceased husband. And one of my favorite stories to tell is, I have two stories. It was about our third or fourth date. And he said, how was your day? And I said, oh, I was doing my least favorite thing. I have to do spreadsheets for all my parties. And I'd much rather do the creative part, but I have to keep track of everybody's money and make sure I'm making money. So he says, so how often do you check your banking account? And I think I'm like hot stuff because I've been dating people that never look, and I look once a month. So I said once a month with my little proud face. He looked horrified because he was a sales manager at a car dealership. So his finances were his life. And I said, so well, how often do you check yours? And he goes, every day, and sometimes more than once a day, which initially felt a little obsessive to me, this once a month person. But it turns out if you check your accounts really often, nothing horrible happens. Nobody steals your money. You don't get identity theft. So my next story, so I thought, I'm having somebody in my life who's really conscious about their money. So we met in October of 2005, and in March of 2006, he invited me to go on a cruise with he and his daughter and her girlfriend. And Bree was 15 at the time. And on that cruise, he gave me 2 presents that I didn't ask for. One was diamond stud earrings, very nice. And the other was his credit report.
What?
I know. Nobody'd ever done that before. So I said, gosh, Tony, thanks. What made you give that to me? And he said, well, I was really clear with reading your profile that it was very important to you to have a man in your life who was financially conscious, financially sound. And I'm falling in love with you, and I want you to see that I am.
Wow.
I said, Christine, I think you turned that around. Here's your physical evidence of that, besides that I had men showing up that had money in the bank. So what I find for women and men, because half my clients are men, is if you just see that there's a trait that keeps coming as a trend, they don't commit, they're not available, they don't contact you enough, they don't seem to care about your feelings, they're not available time-wise, they're grouchy, they're discourteous, they're mean. If it happens over and over and over, it's really time to look at what your part in is. Because if you look at what your part is, you can change that. And as you see, for me, and I watch every time for my clients, a new kind of person will show up because they're out there. It's just, you look past them because somewhere back here, you're looking for this trait that you'll swear you don't want. But if it keeps showing up, there's a reason. There's some reason that you believe you could have that. You don't know there's things that you could have. I mean, I've seen it across the board, the reasons. They all have the same solution. Work through this process and a different kind of person will show up every time.
Wow. So the fact that you figured that out yourself, first of all, is very impressive. And so are there like series of exercises or reflections that you take your clients through to say, well, I always attract this person who, I don't know, who isn't respectful, let's say, are there series of exercises you take somebody through to say, well, but it's not really about them, it's about you? How do you figure out what it is?
So often, a lot of our bad dating experiences are based in our lack of self-confidence, of how smart we are, how pretty we are, how tall we are, how skinny we are, how lovable we are, how dateable we are. That's often why we're dating people that aren't right for us. At least we know they're not right. I mean, the best thing I can say is at least we don't marry them. Right?
Right.
So a lot of my foundational work is to help people with their self-confidence, because I've polled hundreds of men and women, and all of them say, along with the other things that are attractive to them about the opposite sex, self-confidence is one of the top 3. And so if you're feeling good about yourself, you're feeling capable, you're feeling like you're a catch, you're feeling like you have a plan for your life, you are available to explain it to somebody, then you're going to be attracting somebody who feels the same. Because if you're attracting somebody that's discourteous, they probably don't have very high self-esteem, or they're a narcissist, which they have really high self-esteem, but they're not nice people.
Yeah.
And you'll stay with somebody. You'll keep trying too hard with somebody who's not the right person if your self-esteem and self-confidence are not a firm foundation underneath you. So there's a lot of other things that I do with clients to help them start dating differently. That's what I call it. Because if what you're doing now is not working, then you need to change the way that you're dating.
Right.
A lot of it is the foundation of feeling good, feeling your best, feeling like you have a lot to offer. And if you're not feeling that way, I can help you start feeling that way. And what people tell me is a bonus, which I don't even talk about, but it happens all the time, is they start having even more smooth and helpful and connected relationships with the other people in their life, their friends, their family, their colleagues. I know, because if you are more confident, you won't let people take advantage of you. You'll be more open with your heart, because if we're feeling concerned about, oh, somebody might hurt me, we're going to be really guarded with our heart. And even the best, most grown-up person that's walking by is going to go, how would I get through all of that, all that armor? And I tease that sometimes it's like we've gone into a castle and we've pulled up the drawbridge and we have 47 locks on it and a moat with alligators in it that eat people, and people on top of the turrets with oil that they could pour on them, and all these armed bow and arrow people around the property. And who's going to try to get through that, even if they really
Right.
like you? So the the big problem that happens when we have a lack of self-confidence is we date people that aren't right for us. It's not that they're terrible people always, sometimes they are, but if you keep dating people that aren't right for you, you start getting discouraged. Well, what does that do to your self-confidence? It makes it less and less and less. So you're on this downward spiral, where I'm going to get you on an upward spiral, feeling your best person. And once you feel that way, then you're going to attract the right kind of person for you. And I am
Yeah.
evidence of that.
Yeah. Well, I like that because, and you can take yourself with you then, like if you're already in a good place, I think that really opens the door to, and I'm sure you run into some struggles too, where like, oh, okay, I find this nice person, everything's going well, and now that old you shows up, and you're like, oh, no, 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 I'm in a good place, I'm feeling good now.
Yeah, I have tools that I teach for that, because one of the things that John Gray talks about is what happens is we have old stuff. Everybody's got old stuff. I mean, people tell me, oh, I want to date somebody that doesn't have baggage. And I go,
No
well, then
baggage, right?
they're
Yeah.
going to be two, maybe.
Right.
I mean, everybody has baggage because it happens over our lifetime. What we want is somebody who's really done some work on it. So it would fit, the amount of baggage they have would fit in an overhead bin on an airplane. When I
Nice.
looked at mine, it was one of the things I do in my process with people, is I said, oh my God, I have this U-Haul truck following me around that could hold a household good of people of 5, a family of 5. That was bad. But I could see why I was attracting who I was attracting, because I hadn't done my work. So when you've done your work up to a point, it's kind of like peeling an onion, and this wonderful person shows up. And I believe that people show up to help us heal some of our old wounds.
I
We
do
have
too.
similar ones or different ones in a way that's very, if you're open to the opportunity to look at your stuff, and it's not
Mhm.
them, it's your stuff, and heal. So what happens is the more comfortable and connected you start feeling with this other person, some of those old layers that you haven't worked on yet will pop up. And so they come back because
Mhm.
they know, oh, because they're like, oh my gosh, the relationship's over. Do you remember there was a long time ago a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay? And then the next chapter was I'm Okay, What's Wrong with You?
Yeah.
So that's what happens. And so we look at, what is it, your stuff? And and they have stuff too. So we're going to look at their stuff. And then part of what I love that I got as such a foundation for working with John Gray for 2 years is that male communication part, male female, that's so different. Is
Mhm.
so often we're doing this, we're miscommunicating, we're misunderstanding, where I want you to hear the other person in a way that makes sense to you, that doesn't hurt your feelings, that you don't take it personally. It's like, oh, they just speak a different, we do speak very different languages. We have very
Yeah.
different dictionaries. The thing that I know, when people are committed to being in a relationship together, they're willing to look at their stuff. They're willing to do the work. They're willing to walk into this place that feels unsteady and uneasy and uncomfortable, because the benefit on the other side is when you've walked this walk with someone else, with a person helping you, it's even better afterwards. You're in a more firm foundation together. You've done this battle. Sounds so hard, but that's how they've explained it. We felt like we went to battle and we won together. And I love that. I love that
Yeah.
part of it. So I assure people, that this is a possibility. I don't say it'll happen to everybody. At least if it does happen, they're like, oh, that's what that was. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Well, right, we're just going to give her a call because it's not that everything's falling apart. As my grandmother used to say, going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, I was really excited to do this because we're coming up on Valentine's Day, and Valentine's can be a very lonely time for single people, right? We've put all of this pressure on ourselves and on society that Valentine, oh, you have to have somebody that loves you and stuff. So I'm just curious what you recommend to your clients to try and deal with that sense of loneliness during Valentine's Day.
It's interesting. I've written some articles about how to be your own Valentine.
I like
Because
that.
people, oh, I want to ignore it. Oh, I don't. Oh, okay. If it's not a big deal to you, go on. As you said, I mean, it's everywhere. It's in the grocery store, people on the corner selling balloons. You're seeing other people posting on Facebook about what they're doing as a couple. So if it's going to bother you, which it bothers most people from a little to a lot, then be proactive and come up with something lovely to do for yourself. Plan a bubble bath with candles, a chat with somebody that you really care about, a girlfriend, a family member. If you are feeling sad, and so watch a movie that makes you cry and get your whole box of Kleenex. Buy yourself flowers. Yeah. Oh, I have Everybody's Got Beaches. Oh, that's my go-to movie. I fall through the whole thing. I hear the music and I start crying.
I know, and somehow it makes you feel better though after you do that.
Oh, you know why? Moving water is iodized, which is why we feel good after it rains. The air's cleaner, and the moving water in the shower. Well, I think the same thing happens with tears. I think it's very cleansing. I think it's very healing. You know how you get a headache if you try not to cry? Just let it happen. A big waha. People think I'm never going to stop. Well,
You'll
my
stop.
husband died and I stopped crying. I can even now, after years, I can talk about it and not burst into tears. I burst into tears a lot in the beginning. And I just said, if this makes you uncomfortable, you need to leave the room, because I'm really sad that my husband died suddenly
Right.
after only 5 years of marriage. It was hard.
Ugh.
So yes, plan a cry if you need a cry. And then I always have a backup after that of a funny movie. So I want a movie that'll make me laugh. So I like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. That's just such a funny, or Airplane. I mean, I love that kind
Yeah.
of humor. It makes me laugh. So be proactive. As a single person, as a coupled person, I think being proactive is essential. Because if you just wait for stuff to happen, it doesn't always happen, or it might not happen the way you want it to. So you'll be disappointed. Where you know what you like, you know what would make you happy. Please do that. Please take care of yourself. Because what I find is, if you take care of yourself well, if you're nice to yourself, if you're kind to yourself, if you say nice things to yourself, not 24/7, most of the time, you are not going to allow anybody in your life on a permanent basis that doesn't treat you the same. So you're laying a foundation down. Here's one of those exercises I give people to make certain of the quality of person that you're going to be attracting and be attracted to. Because we always say, oh, I hear people say, I'm really sad and I feel bad and I want somebody to come in and make me feel better. I want somebody to come in and rescue me.
Right.
Well, I believe, and it's proven true, that you need to make yourself as happy as possible. And then when a new person comes into your life, they can make you happier. Waiting for someone else to make you happy, it doesn't always work out very well. In fact, it can work out so badly because you will accept too little. That's when people talk about settling. Settling means you're not asking for the best for you. Now, if you haven't thought about what would I like, then how would you know how to tell somebody else what's best for you? So there's another reason for practicing on Valentine's Day. I know people who like flowers. I happen to. So my husband, there was always fresh flowers in our house. And there's some people that don't like flowers. They'd rather a plant. So go buy yourself a plant. And then every day you look at that plant, what a nice present that was for me. I'm so glad I bought that for myself. That you're saying these kind things to yourself. You're being appreciative of yourself. It'll help you be more appreciative when somebody comes into your life of the opposite sex and does something nice for you.
Yeah. And, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about advice I used to get from my mother. Well, I still get. And she would always say, you know, expectations are to get you into trouble. So like if you're expecting somebody to make you happy or to send you flowers or to know that you want whatever, then you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. So I love how you said that, you know, let it be known what you want, and you can even do it for yourself. Joni here went a little overboard, I would say. She bought herself a new car on Valentine's Day in 2012. So that's very nice, Joni. I think I'll stick with a plant or some flowers.
Well, good for you, Jody. See, I'll tell you, it's amazing when I ask my new clients, well, let's look at what you want. You know, let's get it all really clear, because people say, I don't know what I want. I go, well, then that's a problem. Because if you went to the grocery store and you were going to make some new recipe, if you didn't have a list of all the ingredients, problem is you're going to come home with all the same old stuff. So if you want something new, we have to write it down. That's really the point of making lists. And the kind of lists I have my clients make about what they do, what they have to have, and what they can't have, I have them do it in a really different way than normally they've ever done it, where I have them breaking into the 4 categories of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And then not only are they writing the words, like often people will say, I want somebody honest, or I want them to have integrity, or I want them to make me laugh. Then we come up with an entire sentence or even a paragraph that explains each of those words. Because making you laugh, what kind of sense of humor do you have? What kind of things do you think are funny? So when I first met my late husband, he would tell me about this practical jokes that he and his adult son did, because my stepkids are 20 years apart. And I said, oh, wow, I get that people think practical jokes are funny. And I have to tell you, I don't. I don't see the point. They hurt my feelings. I don't even really like hearing about it. So please never do that to me. And so he spread the word through the family, never do a practical joke for Christina.
That
And my
was
husband
nice.
had a wonderful, oh yeah. Well, he knew. I said it'll hurt my feelings and I'll be really sad. And you don't want me to be sad. But he made me laugh a lot. He had a great sense of humor. He just never did practical jokes. So if you say, I want somebody that makes me laugh, you say what makes you laugh. And if you, like when you're writing a profile, if you say, people say I'm funny, then say in there something that people thought was funny, you know, something you said, or tell a joke. Because what people forget to do if they're using online dating, or even just trying to have a conversation with a new person, you need to be able to explain about yourself in kind of a story, like how I've told you stories about what happened on some of my dates with Tony, where I don't just say, I want somebody who makes money and has money. That's not helpful. I tell a story about how I talked about me and what works for me. And then he told me back his story about how he handles his money. And so if you haven't gotten clear about what you need and want, it might be one of the reasons you're not getting what you think you need and want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're talking about dating, you know, we're talking about singles, but a lot of times people have been in these long-term relationships and, you know, they haven't really done a date in a very long time.
Yeah.
So what kinds of things are you suggesting people do for dating, whether you're in a long-term relationship or you're single, especially now during COVID?
Oh, COVID. Boy, that really threw a wrench in the works of lots of people, excuse me, with singles and couples. So the biggest thing I'll say is make a plan. Put a date on the calendar. Especially when you're in a long-term relationship, you just wait for it to show up, a date or sex. And I tell people to put a date to go out or a date to have sex on the calendar. Oh, well, what fun is that? It's not spontaneous. And I go, I am not taken away from any of the fun or the spontaneity. I'm happy for when it just shows up. But for the times it's not just showing up and life is getting in the way, one of the things we human beings are really good about is If we have something on the calendar, we honor it.
Mm.
We keep that date. So one of the things I tell people is, if you know the kinds of things you like, make a list. I like going on a picnic. I like taking a shower together. I like a love note left under my pillow. I like a surprise text during the day that's a sexy one. I like if you gave the kids a bath when you came home, or you played with the kids so I could take a bath, or you made my favorite meal on Sunday night. And you make a list, which sounds so romantic. And I've heard it's not romantic. But if you're fighting because you're not getting your needs met, or you're sad because you're not getting your needs met, neither of those are very romantic at all. And getting what you want and need is very romantic. So then what you do is you give your list to the other person. And there's a variety of things, something that's a really easy thing you can do in a minute, like write a note, or something that takes a little more planning. And then you also have discussed about putting specific dates on the calendar. And if you've got kids, where the kid's going to go, so you can have your date. And then you pick and you talk about, I want something once a week. I'd like something twice a week. I'd like something on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then you negotiate with the other person. Does that work for the other person? So what happened with COVID, with couples that I've worked with, is they had a pretty nice, flow. You went to work, you were gone this amount of hours, I was gone this amount of hours, and we're used to spending this amount of time together, and now we're together 24/7. Oh my God. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it's not that I don't like you, but I don't know what to do with having you here all the time. And so we came up with some tools of, this is how much alone time I need. And this is the kind of alone time. I mean, I need to go shut the door and nobody knocks on the door for an hour. Unless, my mom used to say, this is what my mom used to do, unless somebody's bleeding a lot on the carpet or the house is on fire, do not knock on that door. When she got home from work, she would go in her bedroom for an hour and read and decompress. And then she'd come out and really nobody knocked on that door. So this is a very honoring thing to do for yourself. I need an hour twice a day, and I'm going to go out for a walk by myself, or I'm going to go in the bedroom, or I'm going to go take a bath. I'm going to go in my office. And what really is amazing is when you do something like that for yourself, when you empower yourself to ask for something and the other person says, I love you, sure, I can do that. That already starts making you feel better. It just does, because you've done something good for yourself. It gives us a shot of endorphins. And then when the other person honors it and does it, you're like, well, they really do care. Well, it even makes me feel even more lovable. I already love myself by doing this, and now I'm getting love back from the other person. And it took a little bit. It took a few weeks to turn this around with people, but it was amazing to have them come back saying, wow, we get along so much better, and I'm feeling even better about myself, and it makes me want to spend more time with them because they've been so honoring of me asking for my downtime or my time off, or the things I asked them to do. The thing that happened with singles, oh my gosh, March, when everything shut down, I said, people are not going to think they can date. And they started saying, I can't date, because all the places they normally went to meet people were unavailable.
Right.
So that took a couple months. I mean, I did videos and wrote articles and started a meetup every Monday night for people in my area, which I've been doing since June. And it's fun because I have 20 people generally that show up.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And so what I started doing was really pushing Meetup. I pushed Meetup before as a place to go out and meet people, because you would know already you have something in common. Because you had talked about how we used to meet. We used to meet people in our neighborhood. We met them at school. We met them at work. And we got to watch them from afar. How did they interact with other people? What kind of a person did they seem to be? You got to see them in a bunch of different moods. They got to see you in a bunch of different moods. And you checked them out. It was like looking at their resume. Now, there aren't a lot of ways to do that. I mean, you read a profile and is that really the truth? And you if you haven't learned from me the kind of questions to ask, that people will tell you all sorts of stuff about themselves. So meetup was a perfect way because you knew you had this thing in common. You had walking or wine tasting or a book club. And at least you were now back in this group where you got to watch them interact with other people, and you got to watch them, how they interacted with you, but in this not date way.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of the meetups went online, and there's all sorts of activities you can do with meetup where you now have this thing in common, where you're the same age group, or you like this sport, or you like movies. There's all sorts of meetups out there, or you can start your own. And it gives you a chance to get to know somebody on a slower way, a more like testing them out, where it feels safer. It feels, especially for women, because safety is so important to us. And so, and the best part about being stuck at home, because I always try to look at the bright side of everything, is when you go out on a date and you're meeting a new person across the table, there's excitement, but there's also nerves.
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to think about me? And is this safe? And what you're doing when you're on Meetup on the computer is you're sitting at home on your cozy couch. You couldn't be safer. It has
Mm-hmm.
tend to relax people a little more. They're not quite so nervous. And it's also a way people have been meeting when they couldn't meet in person, when they've been using online dating. I tell them, have a Zoom date, because
Yeah,
we all know one of the biggest complaints about online dating is that people don't look like their profile pictures.
that's so
Now
true.
you get to see them live before
I
you.
I have found that very, very helpful, the
Yeah.
Zoom dates.
Oh, me
And
too.
yeah, and you're not stuck then, like if you meet somebody and you start talking and you're like, oh, right away this is not going anywhere, you can say, okay, it's been nice. Bye. You're not
Yeah.
stuck there for the rest of the evening or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Because I'm back dating again. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the Zoom dating, and it took a while to get people feeling comfortable about it. Now they do it all the time, and then when things started opening again, now that you've talked a few times, you could go meet for a walk at the park with masks or not, or sit at opposite ends of a picnic table and each bring food with masks
mhm.
or not. And that's the other thing, that now there's even additional ways that you see, do we have this in common? Or where's our comfort level about masks? Where's our comfort level about the vaccine? Where's our comfort level about gathering in groups? Because if you have one comfort level and theirs is really extremely different, this is how you find out, is about having this kind of a conversation that, oh, I would be happy to meet you, but I would need to have a mask, or I don't
Mhm.
believe in masks. So it's a whole nother level of finding out of the things that you have to have and can't have in a relationship in these video conversations. And there's so
Yeah.
many ways. There's Zoom and Skype and FaceTime and WhatsApp. There's lots of ways to see another person.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. A question that I think is on a lot of people's minds that are single is when you meet somebody and you've done the Zoom dating and you've gone for the walks and you really start to like them and whatever, is there, do we just trust our instincts, or is there a right time to say, okay, I'm ready to get intimately involved?
Yeah. Our instincts are so formed when we're children that if we haven't done the work, our instincts aren't always accurate and helpful, especially if we do have chemistry with them, if we're all excited about how they look and how they sound. And we go into, both men and women can go into this hormone fog where we kind of lose our minds a little, and we stop looking at the potential red flags and things that could be a problem. So if you want to depend on something inside of you, I think intuition is better. What I'll ask my clients is, when you've just known something, you knew this was the right job to take, or the right way to turn on a street, or you just knew something, where in your body did you know it? Mine's in my solar plexus. It's always been there. And it always tells me yes or no. And when people say, but I can't pay attention to my intuition, it's not been steering me right, I go, I think it's because you weren't paying attention, because it's doing this. It's going, hello, hello, hello.
Right.
And then you go, oh, but I don't want it. Or I want to be a nice person. And oh, who would say that? Who would ask that kind of question? And if your intuition is saying no, there's a really good reason. And you need to question to find out what the no is. Now, it could be just no new. It's, oh, it's too new. It's kind of different. I haven't done this before. But often the no is, this isn't going to be good for you. So it's important to pay attention to the chemistry thing and say, okay, you can listen to your heart, but you have to bring your head along too. Because if you just do your heart and you aren't using your head and you're not paying attention to your list of, well, but I really want somebody who's available. I want somebody that I can go out with all the time. Well, then long distance relationship, even though they're cute, even though they say a lot of the right things, might not work for you. Or I like somebody who isn't around all the time, but here's somebody that's retired that doesn't have any hobbies. I'm not sure that's going to work for you. Or I want somebody who is available to travel and they're really involved with their grandchildren. They watch them for their kids all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens if you get all caught up in the chemistry. You stop looking at these things that 6 months down the road, now your heart's broken because they were this great person, but they don't really fit in these things that are essential to you.
Yeah,
so
that's really.
I have to have list. I can't have list. And then there's the nice things. So that's where you have the negotiating part where, oh, that would be nice to have, but I don't have to have that. And when you have all these other things that are really the essential things, it's amazing how many things you'd like to have seem to come along with it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Right.
So, Christine, I like to end all of my conversations with people with a quote from C.S. Lewis, where he says, "You are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream." So my question to you is, what are you dreaming about for the next 6 to 9 months?
Oh, I will be in a new relationship for sure. I don't have one in mind at the moment. I will. It's my goal. I love being married both times, even though the first one was hard because we were so young and so wrong for each other. Oh my God, we were so wrong for each other. Perfectly lovely person, just no, we weren't right for each other.
Yeah.
And then the second marriage that was wonderful, just too short.
Yeah.
I will do that again. I'm not sure I will marry again. That's not mandatory to me. It's in my, yeah, I'd be fine. I'm okay with that if they want to and I want to. But I will be in a committed long-term monogamous relationship again, before the end of the year. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I look forward to that for you too.
Me too. We'll get back to each other on that.
We'll get back to you on that, right? So let me share ways that people can reach you and communicate with you and ask you questions.
Thank you.
So this is Christine's website, theperfectcatch.com. She also has a Facebook page, The Perfect Catch on Facebook. And you can email her at christine@theperfectcatch.com. You also do a couple of blogs, don't you? Or podcasts?
I do. I have a podcast with Barry Selby. He's also another relationship coach on Thursdays at 1:00 through SteamYard. It's 1:00 Pacific and 4:00 Eastern.
Okay.
And it's called Let's Talk About Dating. Love it. Yes,
Yeah.
we've been doing it now for about 6 months. And this week we're going to talk about lingerie because of Valentine's Day. I know. It's really fun because you get the male-female point of view from us, and we've had so many, like she just put us on Pinterest and we already have 11,000 people that are, I know, isn't that amazing?
That's great.
I think having the combination of a man and woman talking about all these fun subjects and challenging. Last week we talked about guilt and shame and how to get through it in your personal life and your dating life and how it can get in the way of successful dating and how to get through it. And then we talk about fluffy things like lingerie. So it's really fun. We enjoy it.
Yeah, and I've listened to a couple of them. I
Okay.
like them too. Kathy says your website looks great, Christine.
Oh, thank you. I will tell my web designer I have nothing to do with it. I have no idea how that magically happens. All you people that know how to do that, I'm in awe.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about our guest next week. It's actually a very interesting follow-on to this conversation about dating. So my guest next week is Dr. Jane Fleischman, who is a certified sexuality educator. Jane is an award-winning educator, writer, program developer, and sexuality researcher. She co-hosts a regular podcast on sex in the second half of life that's called Our Better Half.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that great? Our Better Half of Life. And she recently did a TED Talk called Is It Okay for Grandma to Have Sex?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
So, hey, boomers, in preparation for that talk, I am offering you the opportunity to email your questions for me if you feel like you might be hesitant to ask the questions in chat. You can send me your questions at wendy@heyboomer.biz. I promise I won't use your name if you email me, because I just know this is going to be an interesting conversation. Lots of good questions could come out of that. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yes, it's essential for both men and women to be proactive about their sexual health because those endorphins make us feel good and it gets our blood rushing in our bodies. And I grew up with a mother who talked about sex all the time. My friends all showed up because my mom was the only one that would talk to them. So I'm really comfortable talking about sex with my clients, and I am going to listen to your broadcast. There's
Yes,
always
listen to
good
that.
things to learn.
I know. Yes, Kathy, pre-work, send me questions.
Oh yeah, sex is such a fun subject to talk about.
So, hey, boomers, thank you so much for joining us today. We all still have so much to give. So let's keep meeting weekly to learn, to share, to dream, and to grow. My name is Wendy Green, and this has been Hey Boomer.
Bye.